Good afternoon. I'm Jack Hall, and on behalf of the Residents Council, welcome to the 39th annual meeting of the Residents Association of Moorings Park. I haven't attended all previous 38 meetings, but I think it's safe to say that this is by far the most unusual meeting. First of all, we're caught up in a pandemic that has damaged us and the world for the last year or so. We in Moorings Park are in a unique position in that pandemic, in that through the skills of our leadership, all the residents who wish to have one have received the vaccination. We are very far ahead of the major society. And that presents a difficulty for us because we need to remember to observe all of the safety regulations. We need to wear the mask. We need to keep social distance. We need to avoid large groups and to wash our hands all the time. That may be difficult to do, but right now we are in a better position, thanks to being at Moorings Park, than most of our colleagues on the outside. Secondly, we are in a technology which allows us to live stream to all the apartments on all three campuses. This is the first time that has been done. And I'm certain that it is being done, although we cannot see you and we cannot hear you. But we trust Tony Marks, our Chief Information Officer, and his technical wizards to make certain this is coming through to you. Normally at this time in the agenda, we would be having a quorum call. A quorum is required if we are going to conduct any business or if we are going to have an election. In this case, we're not conducting business. We are hopefully conveying information to you, and as you'll hear from Ed Schaefer, no election is required. So the next item on the agenda is the report of the nominating committee. Under the prior Constitution, the nominating committee, chaired by a former president of the council and staffed with committee members from all the campuses, selects a slate of candidates for the positions on the council beginning the next year. Beginning with the new Constitution, the governance responsibilities will be given to the governance committee, So here's Ed Schaefer with the last report of the nominating committee. Ed?
Thank you, Jack. In December, the nominating committee distributed to all members of the association a written ballot containing the names and positions for the candidates to be elected to the council. Since that time, there have been no petitions for additional nominations to the council, and by our Constitution, the nominees certified by the nominating committee are deemed to be elected to the offices and positions that are being shown on the slide here behind me. On another matter, you may be wondering why Carl Wiedemann is not on the slate to be elected chair of the Technology Committee, which he is currently heading up. The answer to that question is the committee is functioning at the moment on a trial basis and will continue to do so for the balance of the year, probably through the end of 2021. Jack Hall will have more to say about that in a few minutes. I can conclude my brief report by thanking the members of this year's nominating committee, which include John Beamer, Tom McMahon, and Nancy Sharp from the main campus, and Julie Kerr and Betty McManus from Gray Oaks. Please join me in welcoming the new council members.
Thank you, Ed. As I think most of you know, there are two types of committees on the Residents' Council. some call them local and regional, and they are occupied on several different levels. Each campus council has 4 committees. They are, if I remember them correctly, activities, buildings and grounds, food service, and welcome. Presently, there are campus councils on each campus: Moorings Park Original Campus, Moorings Park Gray Oaks. When Moorings Park Grand Lake comes on with their campus council, those same 4 committees will be formed. In addition, there are 5 committees that we call regional committees. They have responsibility for all 3 campuses, and they have members from all 3 campuses. And those committees include the Employee Christmas and Recognition Fund, the Finance Committee, the Health and Wellness Committee, the Religious and Spiritual Life Committee, and the New Technology Committee. Over the past year, each of those committees has enjoyed very active performance. Each has done a great deal in their areas and have worked effectively with their management counterparts. I'm not going to go into detail of each committee in the interest of time, but I assure you they have made very good progress this year. And I encourage you to read the committee minutes if you like, or even contact the committee chairs or the committee members, because they are interested in what you would like to know about their activities. A few comments about the council in general. This was the year of the pandemic. It started early in the year and dramatically impacted us. But a few things did get accomplished. We have a new constitution and bylaws approved by the residents. We created the new technology committee that Ed mentioned. We welcomed the residents of Grand Lake, which was a very interesting and fun meeting, and we collaborated with management on many occasions to assist in developing communications for the residents on the pandemic. With respect to the new Constitution, it becomes effective today. It was approved earlier in the year, but we did not want to have 2 major changes in one year, so it was deliberately set for a refusal of an approval date of today. Early in the year, we conducted building meetings with all the residents on both campuses. We think those meetings went very well. We had an opportunity to explain the Constitution. We had an opportunity to hear their questions and suggestions. And the result was the Constitution was approved by a 97% approval, which we appreciate. The election we were going to have to get the approval was interrupted by the pandemic, and so we continued but had to do it on an absentee basis. Dudley Lyons will have more to say about the Constitution later in the meeting. A word about the council practices during this year. The council and most of its committees kept their schedule throughout the year, and that was difficult to do. The meeting formats were changed dramatically. A number of members were sheltering in place, others were uncomfortable in large groups and so forth, so we had meetings by conference phone, by GoToMeeting, by Zoom, and hybrid meetings. Some of the Zoom meetings didn't get off to a very good start, but we did get reasonably good performance later on. The council assisted management, and many of the bulletins that you see around the campus reminding us about the safety procedures came from those discussions with management. Now it's time to meet a few of the council members. Christine DeKemper's title is President of the Moorings Park at Gray Oaks Campus Council. That was not her title last year under the former Constitution. But early last year, we all decided that we want to try out the organization prescribed by the new Constitution to see if it would work. Christine and her chairs took that on. We are delighted with the results. The organization performed very well. Christine will now introduce those who are leaving the council and those who are coming in. Christine?
Thank you, Jack. It's my honor to recognize today 4 outstanding leaders in our community who have all been involved in their committees since they began at Gray Oaks 4 years ago. And I'd like to introduce their incoming chairs. For Activities Committee, we have Hale Hansen. For his he will be succeeded by Bonnie Barker, who has served as vice chair of that committee, as well as a member. In Buildings and Grounds, John Risk is retiring from his committee, and he is being replaced by Tom Brand, who has been the vice president, vice chair of that committee. Food Service, Craig Harrigan started the Food Service Committee at Moorings Park Gray Oaks even before we had restaurants, and he has served 4 consecutive years as chair. He is being replaced by George Pappas, who has currently been a member of the Food Committee. And finally, we have the Welcome Committee. Luann Hansen has been on the committee since its inception, and she has played a large part in making sure that Moorings Park has welcomed everybody. She is going to be replaced by Joy Newbert, who has also been vice chair of that committee. Thank you very much. Back to you, Jack.
Thank you, Christine. On the original campus, Leo Armadas has served as president of the campus council for this past year and a bit more. Just as Christine and the council at Gray Oaks had good performance, so did Leo and his original campus council. Leo made great progress this year in communication between the council members and between council members and management on this campus. Leo will now introduce those coming, staying, and going. Leo?
Good afternoon. We'd like to discuss with you the original campus committees and what's going on with each of them. First of all, we'd like to thank all of the outgoing chairs and then welcoming in the new chairs. In the activities area, Nancy Sharp will be leaving as chair, and she will be replaced by Mackie White. In the Building and Grounds Committee, Mike Overholt will be stepping back, and Catherine Ware will be taking his place. In the food service area, Larry Ross will continue to be the chair, and in the Welcome Committee, Beverly Metcalf will continue as chair. That's my roundup of those chairs. We wish them well and thank everybody for all their work. Back to Jack.
Thank you, Leo. I'd now like to introduce the remaining members of the Residence Council, including those on the Executive Committee. In the Employee Christmas and Recognition Fund, we thank Frank Iorossi for his 2 years as chair, with record awards given in each of the years. We're very pleased that Charlie Drum has agreed to succeed Frank, and Charlie has been a member of the committee, which has been very helpful. In the Health and Wellness Committee, we are very pleased that Elias Sabaka has agreed to stay for at least another year. That committee has a number of major initiatives going, a number of new members, and we're delighted that Elias is going to continue the leadership. Likewise, in the Religious and Spiritual Life Committee, Mary Lou Anderson will continue this year. Mary Lou and the committee were instrumental in the selection of a new chaplain, and they are going to work together as he becomes a part of the Morings Park community. On the Technology Committee, as Ed has mentioned, Carl Wiedemann agreed to become the chair, and Carl has agreed to continue. I think Carl will agree sometimes it's harder to start a committee than it is to have the committee when it's in operation. But he and the committee are making great progress. He has members from every campus, and their technical qualifications look superb. With respect to the Executive Committee, Beverly Metcalf is leaving as the Secretary of the Council. But I think you recall you just saw Beverly as the Secretary of the Welcome Committee, the Chair of the Welcome Committee, on the original campus. Last year, when we had difficulty because we lost the services of the Secretary, Beverly agreed to help out as long as she could stay as Chair of the Welcome Committee, an assignment which she really enjoys and which she does very well. So we owe Beverly a special thank you for her double duty last year. We're delighted that Gail Webster Patterson has agreed to become secretary, and we welcome her. The Finance Committee. I hope by now it's not a surprise at all that Dudley Lyons is leaving the Finance Committee after 3 exemplary years, and we are pleased that Bill Steinmetz, a member of the committee, has agreed to take the chairmanship. You recall when Christine DeKemper was here, she introduced her 4 new chairs for 4 new committees. Generally, when you have 100% turnover like that, you're a bit concerned. We're not at all concerned. Because of her leadership, the preparation, and the orientation, we think the Gray Oaks Campus Council will continue to operate on all cylinders. Thank you, Christine. On the Morings Park Original Campus, Leo Armada is not continuing. Leo has been instrumental in forming that campus council, and as I mentioned, his work on improving communication links on this campus are substantial and greatly appreciated. We appreciate Mike Overholt, who has served as a brief time as chair of the Buildings and Grounds Committee, has agreed to become president of the Morings Park Original Campus Council. The next individual is not a member of the council, and he will be the first one to tell you that. But I wanted to thank Tom McCann for the work he has done for the council. Tom is our legal advisor. We don't have legal issues like Morgan & Morgan lawsuits and so forth, but we do have an interest in having our Constitution, our bylaws, the language clear and understandable and inclusive of the best governance practices. Tom has been instrumental in that, but he has also said repeatedly when asked if he might want to be on a committee or be a member, he has told us several times, and it's not original, but he said he will not join an organization that would have his as a member. So Tom will continue as our legal advisor, and with our thanks. Dudley Lyons has agreed to be the first chair of the new Residence Council under the new Constitution. As I mentioned, Dudley has been chair of the Finance Committee for the past 3 years, and before that, he was involved with the Employee Christmas Fund. As president, I was able to attend the Finance Committee meeting, and I can tell you firsthand, Dudley assembled a first-rate group of committee members with good skills and knowledge and experience in the financial area. He works closely with the CFO and with the CEO, and the communication between the committee and management has improved, and the communication between management and the residents on financial matters has improved as a direct result of the committee and Dudley's efforts. As outgoing president, I had the privilege of kind of designing this agenda. And I thought it would be important for all the residents to hear the new chair. And so I am very pleased to introduce your new chairman, Dudley Lyons.
Thank you, Jack, and good afternoon. A minute ago, the light over this table seemed to have gone out, so if I appear to be in the dark, let's hope that's not a symbol of things to come. There are 3 quick points that I would like to make to you today, and I think they'll be informative as well as quick. The first one deals with the gentleman who has just finished speaking, Mr. Hall. A little less than 2 years ago, Jack Hall unexpectedly became president of the Residence Council when Bill Roth became ill. Since that time, Jack has been a very strong leader for the Residence Council and a very strong advocate for the residents with management. But most of all, Jack helped develop and got approval of the Constitution that I'm going to say a couple of things about in a minute. This Constitution is going to be so important for Moorings Park going forward because it will be the platform that allows the resident council to effectively represent the residents on all 3 campuses. And so, Jack, on behalf of our community, we want to thank you for your service. We wish you well in your retirement, and many of us are very envious of that, and perhaps we should call it your second retirement. I want to say a couple of words about the Constitution, mainly because there have been some questions. We've had lots of organizational charts and informative discussions about it, but there's a basic principle that permeates the development of the new Constitution, which is important for everyone to understand. We have gone from 1 campus to 2 campuses, and now with Grand Lake to 3 campuses, and who knows how many in the future. And so we had to think of a way to represent all the campuses and understand that each one of them will have their own uniqueness about them, yet they will also share a lot of commonality among each other. And so we needed to design something that would allow us to take advantage of the uniqueness, but also to understand how we all come together. That is why the campus council concept became prevalent, and as of today, that officially starts. And the uniqueness about that is that the president of each campus has the 4 committees that are responsible for areas that are mostly related to the individual campuses, and the president will also interface with the executive director of each campus, thereby representing the needs and the concerns of the individuals on each campus. That president, however, also serves on the overall resident council, along with the chairs of the committees that Jack has talked about, which basically deal with the similarities we have among all 3 of the campuses. As chair of finance, being one of those committees, I can tell you that it became very apparent that all 3 campuses are linked financially with a consolidated statement and it's so important that all of our campuses perform well. And that is the reason that the overall resident council is set up the way that it is set up. Which leads me to the final point that I want to make, and that has to do with involvement. We have roughly about 135 members of the Residence Council in terms of the people that serve on our committees on the Campus Council as well as on the Residence Council. Every year, based upon term limits or people having obligations that they need to attend to, those committees turn over, and we're always looking for new members. You will see starting next week that on each website will be a full explanation of how we're structured, how we're set up, the rationale for it. And we encourage each of you to take a look at those at the website and see if there's something there that you might like to participate in. You will also see an application form that you can fill out, and it tells you where to send it. The future of the Residence Council really depends upon you and your involvement, because there's only a certain amount of time that each of us will spend, and then we have to turn it over, as you have seen today. So I encourage you greatly to go to the website, think about the things that you like to do, find a place where maybe you perhaps could contribute for a while, and then fill out an application. I want to say one last word about Grand Lake, because I've been asked a couple of questions about that. We will have an ex officio member from Grand Lake on the Residence Council until such time as they elect a president. We anticipate, with the move-in of additional residents, that that election will take place sometime in the summer, and then the 4 campus-centric committees for Grand Lake will be formed and be in place before the clubhouse opens in September over there. At that time, we will go from roughly 135 members of the Residence Council to somewhere around 170, which is another really wonderful reason for involvement. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Jack, and thank you very much, and stay safe.
Thank you, Dudley. Congratulations and best wishes to you and the new council. I have 3 comments that I would like to make before we adjourn. First of all, I would like to thank the council members, members of the executive committee, for their cooperation, their hard work, and the enjoyment that we got together on some of the projects we did this past year. It was a very good council. It's going to be an excellent council going forward, and I do believe they are an effective link between all the residents and management, and I wish them the best. Secondly, the leadership and management of Moorings Park. As residents, we sit here today protected through the pandemic from March on, with practices that were not always popular, but were always necessary. We continue to have to observe the safety practices because of the society around us. But I think we can all congratulate ourselves on the good judgment we displayed by picking Moorings Park, and reflect on the goodness and the skill of the management and all the partners in bringing us through this pandemic and safely vaccinated at this point. And one last item. I mentioned in the beginning how Tony Marks and his team were helping video this so we could send it to you. And I mentioned there was a director of this TV show. Kayla Crawford's official title is Recording Secretary of the Council. She is also Ross Dickman's executive assistant with a variety of responsibilities. But I will tell you without reservation, she has done everything for this council over the past year. She does all the administrative work. She schedules and teaches us about Zoom meetings. She makes pictures. She designs meetings and so forth. Kayla has been invaluable to me over the past year, and I appreciate everything she has done. With that, I close the meeting. We are adjourned. Thank you for attending.